Hello, and welcome to Benji's Cafe podcast. Sun's out again, how lovely. Joining me for episode 8 is the author, presenter, and public speaker, Jono Lancaster. Jono was born with Treacher Collins Syndrome, a condition that affects facial appearance. In his 2023 memoir, Not All Heroes Wear Capes, Jono shares his remarkable story and how he turned his differences into his greatest strength. Jono was also the subject of the BBC documentary Love Me, Love My Face, and later this year he presents Love My Face for Channel 4. He is co-founder of the Love Me, Love My Face Foundation, set up to raise awareness of Treacher Collins Syndrome and craniofacial conditions, supporting families and educating individuals and the public. This jam-packed episode makes my heart soar. Jono and I discuss the therapeutic process of writing his book, and Jono shares the importance of self-love, the power of connections and gratitude in fostering personal growth and embracing the small joys in life.
I just lost focus of all the small stuff. Like, our life is 90% of enjoying that first cup of coffee, enjoying the sun, the birds singing, and there's these moments that happen every day that are small, but they're absolutely massive and they fill up the majority of our life. So yeah, we need to embrace them.
Jono is a passionate disability campaigner and encourages all to find their own self-love alongside tolerance, acceptance and kindness. How wonderful. Just like Jono. I'm so excited for this. Welcome to Benji's Cafe podcast, Jono Lancaster. Good morning, Jono. How are you?
Good morning, sir. I'm very well, thank you. Very, very well. Big smile on my face. And yeah, happy to be here, happy to be invited, and just listening to that intro. Yeah, a little bit of boy done good.
Hey, you've done very good, Jono. Firstly, I want to kick off with how we met when we were at Lime Pictures in Liverpool, filming for the day. We just had a little coffee, we were in the same scenes together, we had a little chat. And I was like, I bloody love this guy. I recognised you, I think, from some TV appearances, but I was like, this is my kind of egg. He's a good egg. We had a coffee and we made a connection that led to this chat. And I think that is beautiful. And I just want to thank you for being so kind that morning. And isn't it wonderful in this world with so many opportunities? Just from a chance meeting, we're now having this wonderful conversation on the podcast. So thank you.
I echo everything that you just said, and I talk about it a lot in my book, those interactions that you have in random places with random people, with a stranger originally, and then all of a sudden you start talking and you're like, hey, we vibe, and there's a really good energy there, and yeah, here we are. So yeah, I am very grateful for that morning and the coffee and the ham and cheese sandwich that we had. And yeah,
did you enjoy the sandwich, by the way?
It was a banging sandwich. Well,
it was so lovely, and you're dead right there, Jono. Just when you get a good connection, then I think it releases, as you say in the book, just like this epic energy within that connection, but also within yourself, which is such a wonderful feeling, isn't it?
It really is, and I think in day and age of social media and IT, we're so in our phones or we're so online, and there's a few reasons we either forget about connecting with others in person, or we have a bit of anxiety build up when it comes to interacting with people outside. So trying to actually be mindful of just going outside and relaxing your shoulders and getting your head out with your phone, looking around, smiling at people, giving them a good morning, a good afternoon, and yeah, you'll open up a few more connections.
Oh, Jono, I echo that a million trillion. Whatever the biggest number is you could score on Countdown, I echo it by that amount. Just a little hello, a little good afternoon for somebody. Get outside, enjoy nature. It's just lovely, and you don't know who you can meet, and you don't know what difference you can make to their day, can you?
Yeah, I agree. And you're not always going to make a lifelong connection. It might just be a good morning, it might just be a smile, and that's it. But you're still left with a smile on your face. And in other circumstances, there might be, like I wrote in the book, there might be life-changing moments, there might be life-changing connections, and there might be interactions that just give you a little bit of hope when you needed it the most. And not all heroes wear capes. I really talk about that. In my book, I talk about the impact that a stranger had. Just a handshake. Simple handshake can save somebody's life. So, yeah, love it.
What I loved in the book, the interaction you had with the man when you worked in the bar, that initially you were kind of a bit wary of him, but then you made that beautiful connection with him. You know, you had a chat. He was really interested in you and your story. And it's very hard, isn't it? Because everyone's different. Everyone's from a different background with different worries, concerns. But it's just trying to be open to somebody's personality, isn't it? To think that they just might deal with you in a different way.
Yeah, the guy in question, 20 years ago now, that I met him, and wrongly I stereotyped him. I'd kind of developed this defense mechanism of I would judge people, or they're going to be kind, they're going to be mean, they're going to say something, what have you. And I got this guy completely wrong. And I ended up having this encounter that just completely changed my outlook and gave me a bit of faith in humanity. And at a time that I'd given up. And yeah, that guy probably will never remember that interaction, but I'm still talking about him 20 years later.
Jono, that there was that connection there. And in the book, my goodness, Jono, you went through so much and you've worked so hard on yourself to find that self-love. I think your story is wonderful. I admire you so much. And being born with Treacher Collins Syndrome, with that condition, it hasn't defined you now, has it? You've just created so much love for people and you're helping so many people. What an arc of a life you've had. It's wonderful.
Thank you. And I try and live my best life. And I was raised, my mum, I talk about my mum. She is incredible. And she was a foster carer for 30 years for children and adults. And she just loved and loved. And she's not even 5, but she's just got this massive heart. And she taught me how to love. She taught me how to love all people and believe in people, whatever circumstances they were going through in life or wherever they were in their life, whether it be a good place or a dark place, just believe in them and give them love. And I've carried that on, and it's a part of who I am. And it's really interesting for those people that are adopted or don't know their birth families. It's that, why are we the way we are? Is it through nurture or nature, or is it, are we born like this, or raised like this through our environment that makes us who we are? And my mum, Jean, who adopted me, she gave me this, well, she contributed me on having a big heart for sure.
She is an absolute hero, my goodness. And to have her there, that must have been so reassuring during those times you mentioned in the book, Jono, with the school bus passing and, you know, the chap in the swimming baths as well, you know, poking fun at you. Those periods where it must have been so tough. How low during that difficult period of growing up, of being a teenager, did you feel? And what a wonderful group of friends you had to buoy you and help you through that.
I've been very lucky. I've always had an amazing set of friends around me. And when we talk about childhood and growing up, they are always like, you're just one of the boys. So we didn't see this person, this kid with a visible difference. You were just Jono to us. And then when they read the book, they were like, whilst we saw incidents, we didn't realise how bad it was. And how bad it got for me was as a child, I loved my face. And I loved the fact that I would tell all my friends that my mum went to the hospital, and out of all the babies there, my mum saw me, she fell in love with me, and she took me home. She fostered me for 5 years with all these other cool kids that had all these other differences. Then she adopted me when I was 5, and I got 2 parties. I got a birthday and an adoption day. I love telling those stories, and I love going to London for all my operations because my mum would make it these incredible days. And yes, there were stairs and, there was painful surgeries, but my mum and my friends always made it just fun and great, and I was accepted and full of self-love, and all these other children had various disabilities, and it was just cool. We all had our own little superpowers. But as I got older and I started realising, and I started sharing those same stories to the older kids, and it was like, oh, you were adopted because you look like that. Your birth parents didn't love you because you looked like that. You were born on Halloween, that's the way you look. And then there'd be kids pulling their eyes down. At rugby training, he was like, oh, don't go near him, don't tackle him because you'll end up looking like him. And then all of a sudden there was a change in my own feelings of the things that I once celebrated, I was then now embarrassed to talk about, or I was ashamed of. And as I got older into my teenage years and people started going into relationships, and all of a sudden it's about being cool and being popular, I questioned whether I belonged in this world. And I always thought about death, and I always thought about going to a place where I belonged, and this world wasn't a place where I belonged. A world that's obsessed with image and looks, and I didn't fit in. So those teenage years from 14, 17 were really tough. I discovered alcohol as well at that age, which made things 10 times worse. But thankfully I was able to work through that. But yeah, there's also been things in adulthood where I feel like I've done the emotional work and I've done the acceptance, but there'll be just this trigger that'll just cause that anxiety or that'll cause that depression, and all of a sudden I'm questioning things again. So still got work to do. There's a lot of stuff that happened in my childhood that I'm still working through, but I'm working through it.
Jono, you are just truly wonderful. I think we mentioned when we met about my sobriety and being in some very dark places in my life, and just how the increasing lure of alcohol, what I thought would help me and escape those thoughts, those dark thoughts, my goodness, just ultimately just didn't help at all. And it's so lovely. You must be so proud of the work you've done on yourself, Jono. I feel that through becoming alcohol free, I have become my true self, which leads to connections, which drops my anxiety and depression. And if you can just begin to chip away and address those things and realize that alcohol isn't good, it just darkens, it just prolongs agony almost in life. Life can be joyous. So I completely commend you, Jono. I feel quite emotional because when I was reading your book, I was like, I get that. And my childhood, it wasn't as tough as yours by any stretch of the imagination, Jono. But just more into adolescence and adulthood, just thinking, I am a bit different. I love the fact that you felt on stag do's a bit like, this isn't quite me. I feel the same. I'm into theatre and, and music, and I love it. I love embracing myself, and the way you embrace yourself, Jono, just fills me with absolute so much hope. I just think it's wonderful.
Oh, thank you, man, for sharing that. And that's what I really wanted with the book. I did a school visit years and years ago, 15 years ago, and I thought that when I was doing this school visit, I would be talking to a child with a visible difference or with a disability, because they may connect with me. But from the back of that, all the kids gave me a round of applause and a standing ovation and stuff. And I was like, oh, kids will just cheer at anything. And we went out to the schoolyard, ready to go home. And some kids came running over to me and they were like, Jono, can we see your hearing aid? And I was like, yeah, sure. So I showed them my hearing aid, and they're like, "Oh my God, that's so cool. It's so cool that you don't have to listen to your mum when she's shouting at you." And I was like, "I know, it's cool, right?" And then some more kids came running over. They're like, Jono, can we come and play? Can you come and play football with us? So I was like, "Yeah, sure." So I'm walking over to play football with them. "Oh, can you be on our team? Can you be on our team?" And I'm like, "Oh my God, what's happening here?" More kids came running over. And then all of a sudden, kids start talking about, "Hey, Jono, I don't know who my birth parents are. Hey, Jono, I get bullied because of this." And all these kids are just opening up. And I'm like, "Oh, I've actually spoken to every single child here. And they've all just found something within my story to connect with." And that's what I really wanted to put in the book, because I found that the more I've spoken to audiences all over the world, different backgrounds, different beliefs, different language, different culture, they've all found something to connect with. And we have more things in common with our neighbours than we actually realise. And it's just, again, storytelling. And when you share stories with one another, you're like, "Oh my God, I felt like that." And "Oh my God, yes, that's so me."
But how wonderful is it when, with the Love My Face Foundation that you have set up, Jono, when you're supporting families especially, and they must appreciate your input, your help and your support and understanding so much, because they can see that by celebrating yourself, you have a wonderful life and you're helping so many people. That must give them so much hope.
The Love My Face Foundation that I've set up with my friends is something I'm incredibly proud of. And there's a quote out there that, "Be who you needed when you were younger." And when I was in my darkest days, I definitely needed to see somebody with a visible difference just living their life with a smile, a bit of a confidence, just being their authentic self. And so being able to create a platform and a charity that I can do that is pretty special. But one of the best things about the charity is we organise an annual. I will visit all these families. I've visited families all over the world, but one of the best things is we'll have an annual retreat. All these families get together, and for some of the kids, their first time attending, they all of a sudden they see kids that just look like them for the very first time, and it's a strength that I've gone goosebumps talking about it. It's just a strength and a life-changing moment of like, "Oh my God, they look just like me." And then you've got dads talking to one another, you've got siblings talking to another about their own unique feelings and emotions, you've got grandparents talking to other grandparents of like, "Well, where do we stand in all of this?" And it's just this, again, it's that human connection, bringing people together just to comfort. And you don't even have to talk, but you just instantly get it. So yeah, I'm pretty proud of that Love My Face Foundation.
Do you think growing up that you would have benefited massively from a similar organisation in your childhood?
I would have definitely benefited from more regular contact from people with the visible difference community. I would have benefited from seeing more people visible on screen. Growing up, the only people that I saw with visible differences was the James Bond villains. All of them had scars or height differences, and the mouth, and it's a poor trend that James Bond use even in recent times. James Bond villains have scars, and then even Lion King, he has the scar. He's a villain.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden, I saw Edward Scissorhands, and it's one of my favourite films. And I was like, "Oh my God, this guy was abandoned like me. Then he's taken into this family. Oh my God." And then he falls in love with Winona Ryder. Winona Ryder was my first ever celebrity crush. And then she likes him. And I was like, "Oh my God, this is the coolest thing." And then he ends up back on his own, alone in the house. And it absolutely broke me. I was like, why do people with visible differences not get happy endings? And I'm like, where's my happy ending? How do I get a happy ending? And so I needed more positive representation of visible difference. I'm not saying when it comes to TV and movie that we shouldn't use people with visible differences as villains. I'm saying that we need a better balance because there definitely hasn't been one in the past. But I love Deadpool. The end scene of Deadpool just has me in tears so much. So Deadpool is a superhero that's gone through burns, and he has burns on his face. And at the time, he's in a relationship, and it ends, and he hides his face with a mask. At the end of the film, they're face to face. He's got the mask on, and she's about to lift the mask off. She's going to see his visible difference, his burns for the first time. And I was like, oh, come on. Happy ending, please, happy ending. He pulls up his mask so he can just see his lips. And then all the mask comes off.
Oh.
And she looks at him, and he's like, so what do you think? And she's like, okay, a little shocked at first, but it's still a face I would love to sit on. And I was like, yes, that's what we want. That's what we want. And
I love it.
Yeah, just somebody with a visible difference, just being cool, loved, attractive. That's what I needed in my teenage years. So hopefully, and I think we're starting to see it a lot more in today. We're seeing a lot more positive role models with visible differences, but there definitely needs to be more.
I wanted to ask the importance of setting boundaries in one's life, Jono, when you're striving for self-love, when you're finding your authentic self. That's hugely important, isn't it? Creating a safe cocoon around, your fears almost.
Boundaries and boundary setting all of a sudden became a really big topic in the book. And a lot since the book's come out, a lot of people that's been a big chapter that people have brought up, boundary setting. I didn't realise that I was very poor at setting boundaries. And I was like, yeah, I'm the same. I grew up hating my face. So I put this pressure on myself to people please, to make people laugh. And I felt like I needed to do that because I needed to earn my ticket into a friendship, into a relationship, into anything. And so I didn't have any boundaries, which left me very unsafe as a child. But then I was carrying those trends on into teenage years and early adulthood, which left me even more vulnerable. And I'm very lucky that bad things, like the worst things, didn't happen to me. But if you're just living a life of people pleasing and just not having any boundaries, you just become very vulnerable, and you lose all sense of self and authenticity just because you're just giving, and people are taking and taking and taking. And as I've got older, I set boundaries. I communicate boundaries, especially in relationships, whether they be intimate relationships or professional boundaries at workplace. And I feel guilty when I do them. I'm like, oh no, I've set a boundary. Is that okay? And I'm sorry. And they're like, oh no, that's fine. It's good to know. What have you? But boundary setting is huge, and it keeps you safe. And the people that respect those boundaries, they're your people. Those people that challenge those boundaries and take advantage or ignore those boundaries, they're not your people.
Jono, I think we're going to have another ham and cheese sandwich before long. My goodness, that just rings so true. I think probably for most of my adult life, Jono, just the want to be liked, just be a people pleaser. I did that for years, and it was becoming alcohol-free, Jono, where it's just I can't give everything to other people. I can't take on board other people's worries or negativities. I've got to look after myself, and realizing that, which, really, pricked my attention in the book as well, was hugely important for my self-development. You can't try and please everybody. And now the joy for me when, I can leave a party early, one, because I'm not pissed as a fart, and I can drive home. But I'm just like, no, I've had a lovely time. I've made some lovely connections. I'm ready to get home now so I can enjoy another fresh day tomorrow. It's boundary setting. It's so important, isn't it?
It's hugely important. And again, I'm learning to leaving the party or leaving the event early or when I'm ready. So, and it's something that I still find really, really hard to do. But a bit of practical advice for anybody listening that struggles with that: role play it before you go, as you're getting ready. Role play. No, have some conversation starters. Have some reason, like, right, I'm leaving now because I've got X, Y, Z. Practice those stories. Oh, why aren't you drinking? Practice those conversations. I don't want to. I want a fresh head tomorrow. I don't like, but whatever. Oh, I'm doing sober January or whatever it is. Practice those conversations, and then when all of a sudden you're in that social hub and people are coming at you and there's lots going on, you already know what you're going to say. You already know your escape route, and that massively, massively helps me. Being in that control in that situation. Driving helps, knowing where the bathroom is so I can escape and have a few deep breaths.
Yeah.
And then if I'm doing a public speaking event, knowing where the fire exits are so I can escape when I'm crumbling under pressure. So yeah, just knowledge is power. So that definitely helps with that anxiety. How did your friends take it when you first started talking about I'm not drinking tonight? Because I've had a few jokes. Oh, it's only one. Oh, you're so boring. Oh, and I'm like, and then I have to repeat myself, and I was just like, oh, this is frustrating. And they're not being malicious about it. 'Cause I've had some really bad drinking weeks recently.
Right.
And I was talking to my friends, and I was like, right, I've downloaded my drink aware, tracking my no alcohol 3 days, blah, blah. And then a friend would be like, oh, I was hanging out tonight. And they're like, yeah, let's hang out. Or I'm drinking. And they're making a point that they're drinking. And I'm like, that's a little bit of a dig at me. And I've just shared that I've had a really bad alcohol week where I've drank so many 110 units this week.
Right.
And so how have you dealt with that?
Well, it's very interesting, Jono. I think my friendship circle have, at first, of course, you get the, like, what? Because I was known as the life and soul of the party. The lovey, oh, here's the lovey, drinks far too quickly. But I think increasingly when they saw how well I was becoming, because I felt my authentic self, I was feeling healthier, my anxiety dipped, my depression dropped, I was becoming kind of fearless almost in everyday life. I was becoming like my own superhero. And I think they really began to admire that. But I think people just really respected me, and I found it really easy. I think because I knew the decision I made to stop, it was improving my relationships, it was improving my health, but also it was improving the heartbeat of me, the inside of me that for years had used alcohol to be loved. And now it's not an issue. I just fast forward and think, no, because I'd wake up feeling lethargic, full of anxiety, grey, the return of Grey Ben. So everyone's been so supportive, none more so than my fiance, and life is immeasurably better. How do you feel this week after a heavy week? Was it kind of, did you enjoy that week, or now is it a case of, right, that's my little catalyst just to keep a tab on it for a while?
It's always been an interesting thing. Like, it's also amazing that, and I talk about this when I'm on stage, I am full of self-love. I'm very proud of who I am. I'm very successful. But we all have our things that we're working through. And people look up to people on stage or book or on TV or on social media. Oh my God, they've got it. They've got it all sussed, and like, well, look, we haven't. We're still working through stuff. I still struggle with rejection, and all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I thought I'd done all this work, and all of a sudden it just kicks in. But with alcohol, for me, I have this all or nothing personality, and I don't drink when I'm sad. I don't drink when I'm happy. I just drink at home. I'm like, oh, I'll have a nice bottle of Chablis tonight. Oh, I'll have a nice red because I'm drinking, because I'm having steak. Or, I fancy some whiskey. And then all of a sudden I just have this week where I don't get blackout drunk. I've never had hangovers. I was just drinking at home on an evening, and I didn't think anything of it. I live alone, so there was none of this hiding it with a partner or anything. I would just drink, and it didn't really register how bad it was. But then recently, that following day I'd have brain fog, and I wouldn't go to the gym. I wouldn't leave the house the following day. I'd kind of be going around in autopilot, and I'm like, yeah, this needs to change. And I have quite an addictive personality. So the My Drink Aware app, tracking my no drink free days and setting goals, that's definitely helped.
Yeah. Brilliant, Jono.
Yeah. And all of a sudden, the weights that I'm lifting at the gym have increased. I've been outside more and done more appointments. I've done more jobs around the house. So I can definitely see the benefits just instantly.
Isn't it nuts? Like you're saying there, Jono, your productivity increases. You know, I'm sure around these parts, Jono, they think I'm the village idiot. You know, I've got a spring in my step. I'm out there enjoying my morning plod, you know, walking the dog. I'm like, morning, morning. They're probably like, oh, bloody hell, here he is. That's my Saxon, by the way. But isn't it funny that just the energy it gives you, and you know, kudos to you just for thinking, right, I'm going to get the app out and just begin to look after myself a little bit better. I think that's brilliant, John.
Yeah. So, well, no, thank you.
What really touched a note in the book? I'm so close to my mother and had a very strange relationship with my father, who sadly passed away. I don't think I've started to grieve yet because I didn't really know my dad that well. We saw each other sporadically, and just the beauty of growing up with women, it's given me empathy in life. It's taught me that it's okay to cry, and you know, growing up with women as well, they seem to share more, and I think it's taught me a lot that sharing is great, that crying is great, and it's okay because it's almost an emotional release where you can move on, can't you, afterwards?
I agree. I am so grateful. It's at times been bittersweet because there have definitely been times that I craved a father figure. I would see my mates doing things with their dads, and I'm like, oh, I wish I had that. And then back to the stag do's, I'm with all my mates and their dads on a stag do, and they're like, is Mama Jean coming? I'm like, no, thanks for the invite. And I was just like, oh my God, your dads are just so amazing. But I'm also kind of scared of dads as well. I find it so much easier to get on with or I'm more comfortable, more relaxed around women. But the strength that my single mum, she's an older single mum as well. She adopted me when she was in her 40s. And so I've just had this kind, loving, soft, gentle, super strong woman, independent woman raise me. And it just gave me so many beautiful qualities that I've been able to use to find self-love and acceptance. And I think if the roles had have reversed and I had been potentially brought up by a typical single male, I think things may have been a lot different emotionally, because self-love, loving yourself, having a good cry isn't necessarily associated with a man. So, yeah, I am very lucky and I'm very proud of my upbringing.
Yeah.
With my mum, and I love a good cry. I love a good cry, and I love sharing, and yeah.
Well, look at the wonderful qualities that your mother has given you. It's fantastic. I think we're both lucky sausages, aren't we? My mum, you know, she's had a tough year last year, but she's just wonderful, and you know, I'm so grateful. But it's so similar in, you know, the times growing up where I'd see dads go to the football with their sons, and I never had that. I just didn't have it, and it's kind of like, it's okay because now, you know, worked on myself, and obviously that's completely ongoing, that it's like, it's okay, and I can see that wasn't meant to be, but my goodness, how lucky that, you know, I had a fantastic mum who's, given me all the qualities that I enjoy today and that I enjoy sharing. I remember Mum coming to watch football, and I used to play. Our school was near Walsall, near the Black Country, Jono. So my mum, bless her, she's from Birmingham, but she's quite well spoken. And bless her, I would play in goal. She'd be stood behind my goal. All these dads on the touchline like, "Come on, Wayne, pass the ball with ya, bloody hell!" And she'd be like, Ben, I'm just popping to IKEA. So she'd come back and pick me up. But my goodness, and it sounds like, Jean was equally as caring and supportive as my mum.
So my mum used to come and watch me play football all the time, Sunday league. And everybody was like, "Oh, why is your grandma brought you?" And I was like, "That's my mum." But yeah, I would always say, I'd be better. I'd be a professional footballer if I had a dad. I wouldn't have all these tragic dates if I had a dad, because a dad would give me some words of wisdom on how to pull, and just all in your head. But
Gosh.
my mum was great, and I actually think I'm a really loving partner because of my mum.
So, Jono, the book, Not All Heroes Wear Capes, describe to me when you first saw it in print, and how was the idea pitched to you, and the whole process of getting your life out there in print. How rewarding was that? And just that feeling when you first saw a hard copy in your hand, it must have been mind-blowingly exciting.
Writing a book has been one of the hardest and one of the best therapeutic things that I've ever done. During COVID, I met the amazing Fern Cotton on a podcast, and we interviewed and we shared stories, and she's like, "Oh my God, there's a book inside you, Jono." And there is. I always had for the past 20 years this idea of a book, because I was meeting all these people all over the world, and I was like,
yeah,
if only they could read my book. And she was like, "Write me a book proposal," or her people a book proposal. So I did, and they came back and were like, "We'd like to make you an offer." I was like, "Oh my God, this is amazing." And they were like, "We love your writing. You don't need a ghostwriter. This is you and an editor." And I was like, "Oh my God, amazing." And then all of a sudden he was like, "Right, that's your deadline. That's how many words we want. Go." And I was like, "Okay, this is a challenge." And then I met my editor. My editor, Rue, is amazing. And she was like, "Okay, Jono, just give me some chapters. Just rough idea of some chapters. Don't forget about anything else. Just give me some ideas of some chapters." So I put some chapters down. She's like, "Okay, next job. What about some stories within each chapter to highlight each chapter?" And I was like, "Oh, okay, let's do that." And then all of a sudden we had this blueprint that was just getting fatter and fatter over the 2-year process. And then the design artist came in and we were looking at front covers. And then I got to do the audio book. Then it got released in Spanish. And when I first got my book, I was really shy to see it. I was very imposter syndrome just kicking in. And even on launch day, people were like, "Oh, are you going to do a book launch? Are you going to have a big party?" And I was like, "No, I'm hiding in my house. I'm not." I found it very hard and very shy. And even today, when I do speaking events, so like, everybody's got a copy of your book, talk about your book. And I was like, "Oh, here's my book." And I quickly put it away. I'm very weirdly shy about it, but incredibly proud. And one of the best healing things that I've ever done was during the process, and I talk about it in the book, I was working with my inner child. As a child, I was so unkind to myself. I said so many horrible things to myself and did so many horrible things to myself, put myself in so many horrible situations that I had to reconnect with my inner child and I had to love them. And one of the things I did when I was recording my book, I went to Penguin Studios in London to record. When I'm working with my inner child, I have an old teddy of mine with one of my old rugby jerseys on. That's little Jay. I put him in the corner of the studio on a chair, and little Jay, my inner child, listened to me record my whole book. Talk about all my stories, all my healing, all my growth, all my trauma. And just here was on fire. And he was just healing. It was like almost coming a full circle of just realizing that we are the biggest hero in our own lives. We have so much control and power and influence on what we do. And there's a big, massive light here, big sort of inspiration here. And when we continue to connect with others, strangers that just give us a little bit of hope and a little bit of a kick up the backside every now and again, you're best equipped to take on whatever life throws at you. So the book experience was beautiful, and I didn't want it just to be about me either. So there's little bits of homework in there for the reader to do.
Yeah.
So incredibly proud, and yeah, very lucky that I was able to do the whole process.
What I love in the book, Jono, as well, like you say, those little bits of homework that you give, they're lovely little, it's a lovely little device, actually. So along the way of appreciating and absorbing your story, it's just a little reminder to keep tabs on ourselves as well. I love that. It was a real cathartic. I read it in over 3 days, and it like really helped me. It really set me up for a good week.
I wanted people to reflect on their own lives as they were reading that. We talk about boundary, we talk about working with inner child, we talk about recognizing environments or people that give us energy or take away energy. We talk about alcohol, people pleasing, we talk about relationships. So yeah, I want people to reflect on themselves, because that's something that's helped me throughout my life, is that self-reflection. Why do I feel like this? Don't just push it away. Let's just sit with these feelings and these emotions, and just let's start working through them. And yeah, it's done me the world of good.
Feel quite comfortable in life, and very just I do feel happy. I feel in a good place, Jono, that I enjoy my morning coffee. I'm appreciating the little things so much more. Like my senses to life are like so heightened, and it's beautiful. Isn't it lovely when you're in that position, when you can appreciate a coffee, you can appreciate a bit of a kitchen boogie to your favorite song, you can appreciate birdsong. Those things are magical, aren't they?
They really are. And something that I talk about in the book, I went through a few years ago, where everything was massive. I was doing all these big fancy trips, these big fancy events, and TV or there were all this big stuff happening. And then I just lost focus of all the small stuff. Like, those big stuff are great and they should be celebrated, but they may happen once every now and again. Our life is 90% of enjoying that first cup of coffee, enjoying the sun, the birds singing, and there's these moments that happen every day that are small, but they're absolutely massive, and they fill up majority of our life. So yeah, we need to embrace them.
There are periods in my year when I'm really super busy, but just remembering that it's okay to take a breather and use those little devices to give yourself a bit of a reboot.
Definitely. I'm very body aware now, so when I'm busy, I tense my shoulders, especially my right one. When I'm and then every now and again I'm like, relax your shoulders, take a deep breath, because I just carry this tension, and we're just so in it. Like, what do we need to do? What's next? What's next after that? What's after that? And just we've all lost that ability to slow down. But when you do, it's grand. Just walk a few steps slower. That's a big thing as well. Just walk a few steps slower. Don't rush. Even the way we speak, you can speak 100 miles. If just slow down a little bit, and then all of a sudden, your heart just feels a little bit more calmer, and you just start feeling things just a little bit more, and you start processing things just a little bit more, and yeah, just slow down, just pause every now and again.
So I just wondered, is there one song when you put it on when you're driving along in the hot rod, you've got the windows down, that you can crank up and just make you feel bloody happy?
A happy song. I love Coldplay's Yellow. And the reason why I love Coldplay's Yellow is because it's very triggered to a moment, and it just makes me feel so amazing. I went to see Coldplay a few years ago, and the girl I was dating at the time, Yellow came on, and I was stood behind her, cuddling her, we're listening to the band, and she turns round, she cuddles into me, and she looks at me, and she's like, and she sings, your skin and bones turn into something beautiful, I love you so. Eye contact. And I was just like, right now, there's no other moment, no other place where I'd rather be, right? And I'm just amazing. I'm feeling like the sexiest, coolest guy in the world right now in this moment. So that song definitely brings a smile to my face. But when I'm a little bit reversed. When I also love when Love Will Tear Us Apart by Joy Division as well. I love Stupid.
Yeah.
Be dancing to that. But
Yeah.
when I'm feeling sad and I go for a drive, I will purposely put songs on that will make me cry. George Michael, his version of I Can't Make You Love Me.
Oh.
I actually think about my birth parents not being able to love me. So I interpret it differently and I just cry and I cry and I cry. And by the end of the song, I'm good. It's weird. There is so many happy songs that, yeah, Yellow, definitely a song that just always guarantees to bring a smile to my face.
Jono, it's been so lovely to chat to you today. Congratulations on the book, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. The BBC documentary, of course. Check that out. Love Me, Love My Face. The Love Me, Love My Face Foundation. You do so much good work for people in the UK, worldwide. And I just want to say thank you for chatting to me that morning when we first met, for saying hello and having that connection. And from that connection, reading your book, having this chat today, and it's just put a massive smile on my face. Jono Lancaster, thank you so much for joining me in Benji's Cafe podcast.
And thank you for sharing that and appreciating and showing love for our connection. And that meant a lot to me as well. So again, just a reminder to anybody that's listening that good morning, that random smile to a passerby can lead to beautiful things. And it's okay if it doesn't, because you're still smiling, but it might just lead to something pretty amazing. So thank you for this conversation, mate. And I'm really glad we connected.
Thanks for listening to the brilliant Jono Lancaster. And do read Jono's book, Not All Heroes Wear Capes. It's beautiful. Don't forget, a fresh new episode of Benji's Cafe podcast drops every Tuesday. Just find us wherever you get your podcasts. Give us a follow so every episode gets sent straight to your phone. Tell your friends, tell your family. And if you can, please leave a review. Well, I'm off to London now to film an exciting new series called Heroes Have Heroes. So no episode next week. Benji's Cafe podcast will be back with episode 9 on Tuesday, April the 1st. I'll get the kettle on. Have a great day.